Hey, what's up, YouTube? Lord Zand here, coming to you with another not AR6 Steamboat Stinger 2 video. I'm trying to process the assassination of Charlie Kirk. This is a horrible loss. I know there were people that, loved him. Many people loved him. And many people hated him. Why do they hate him? Well, he was a Trump supporter. He used, his organization, Turning Point USA, to, rally support for the re-election of President Donald J. Trump. Now, and he was also pro-Christian, pro-family man, pro-gun rights, and most of all, his whole kind of shtick was, I'm going to go to the most hostile place for a conservative man or conservative person, period. College universities, and I'm going to debate people to change my mind. I'm going to let them say what they're going to say, and we'll have an open dialogue. So he was assassinated because, of his conservative views, and because he wanted to reach out across the aisle. That was his whole thing. And his loss is devastating. I'm trying to process it. And, I didn't know him. I never met him. I've only watched his videos on YouTube, and I didn't agree with everything he said, but I believe in his right to say it. A true liberal, a classic liberal that don't really exist anymore, is like, all right, I hate what you're saying. I don't like it. I don't agree with it, but I defend your right to say it to the death. And I just finished watching this video that Chris Cuomo did, and he had Bill O'Reilly on the show. And again, those are polar opposites on the political scale, but they both knew Charlie Kirk, and they had a mutual respect. Again, and Cuomo said, I don't agree with everything he says politically, but he's a good man. And his assassination, Charlie Kirk's murder, is a sad day, and I see a great horrible sickness in many ways in the United States. And here's what I'm talking about. All right, the first sickness, and again, I love America. It's not a perfect country. There's a lot of, I'll say the negative stuff first. There's a lot of blood on its hands, and terrible things done across the history of our country. But yet, everybody wants to come here from across the world, from their crazy countries that don't allow freedom or economic opportunity, allow you to raise your families, that if you speak out against them politically, you have literal, death squads come pick up you at your house, black bag you, over your head, and they drag you off, and you're never to be seen again. That's not here in America, despite what some crazy local leftists say, that this country is unsafe and horrible. That's a lie. And I have to call out this evil that just happened. Again, you may not like what Charlie Kirk said, or what what he believed in. He was a Christian, and again, Christianity, despite what popular belief is, is under attack. Judaism, anti-Semitism is again rising. So I pray and hope to God that it never rises again to the levels of the 1930s, with a certain dictator, socialist, a real fascist. Charlie Kirk was not fascist. He was not a racist. I watched a lot of his videos. Again, sometimes he didn't have the most careful finesse for how he delivered his message, and sometimes I feel his messages were out of line, but he was right about a lot of things. And this was an act of terrorism, and just a sad day in America, the country I love. Now, I have roots here in America. I was born here in America. My family was born in America. My father, and I, we consider ourselves, Texicans. But if I were to walk into Mexico, like, yeah, what's that American doing here? Spanish kind of sucks. He sounds like a white boy, like a gringo. That's what they would say. I wouldn't be seen as a Mexican, because I'm not. Patriarchally, that's where some of my bloodline flows. My mother's bloodline flows through, South America. But anyways, that's not important. And I want to say for a long time, I was a local leftist. I voted Democrat most of my life. And I started to change with the second presidency of Barack Obama. How many immigrants that he shipped out. And just noticing the hypocrisy of the left. And then slowly over time, I just kind of woke up to reality that we have Republicrats and we have Democrats and, the Uniparty, and, they seek to divide us. We have people on the right wing, which I totally condone and do not support. They're saying, well, we need to get our revenge. We need to avenge Charlie Kirk. We need to, strike back. This is war. No. War is the absolute last. Fighting is the absolute last resort for any resolution of conflict. That's actually, when negotiation and talking stuff has failed. Charlie Kirk also had a viewpoint which I agree with about Israel, the war in Gaza with Israel, and the attack on October 7th and stuff. I see a bigger picture, and I have a lot of members of my family that are very ingrained into the Democratic Party, and because I don't walk in lockstep with them, you're like them, you should, you have brown skin, you should vote Democrat. Like, no, I don't owe the Democrat Party nothing. I owe no political party nothing. They, I don't support them anymore. I don't vote. I'm an independent voter. Now, I will vote for a worthy Democrat when that person presents himself. Again, there's a judge that I love. I won't mention her name, but she's awesome, and she's got a D behind her R and behind her judge's cloak or robe, and she's awesome. And then, anyways, I'm an independent voter, but according to some of my family, you're a Trump supporter. I don't really like Trump. I don't think he's the worst person on the planet. And there's some questionable things about him and XYZ, ABC, but people call him like white supremacist, a Nazi, and whatever. But I remember for decades, he was in movies and supported pictures with Oprah and all these. He was a Democrat. And over time, like me, he just changed his mind. And again, the Democratic Party is no prize, for sure. But the Republican Party, for sure, is, they're not great. I hate the two-party system. If I had my way, there would be a third party. I particularly believe in, Cesar Chavez and La Raza Unida, what they did in California and Delano County, defeating both the Democrats and Republicans, actually doing stuff for the actual people. And they don't talk too much about this, but he was, anti-immigration because they were messing up his, walkouts of the job and, his peaceful protesting to get workers' rights, and fair wages and all that stuff. Again, that's kind of a leftist view, but again, I don't consider Charlie Kirk, a racist or a white supremacist or, white nationalists and all those things that they were calling him. I want to say CNN, a day or two before his death, they were saying that he's a dangerous man. He's a threat to our democracy. He's like, a Nazi and stuff. I was like, that's a bunch of bullshit. Okay, anyway, sorry. Anyways, I'm just so sorry for his loss. I'm a father, and his 2 children. They're gonna have to grow up without their father. Their father was stolen from them. His wife, I just. Sorry, I'm gonna cry. Men don't cry. We're tough. But it's sad. Very, very sad. But anyways, I feel for them, and the act of terror of assassinating a man, by shooting him in public, like that. They want to send a message. They want to send a message of fear, like, don't talk out against, Palestine, and don't talk about against, trans rights, or LGBTQ, people, or, DEI, or all this other crazy leftist social engineering, Marxist bullshit. Karl Marx and his friend Engels, they were like, I would consider the worst humans on the planet. They fueled ideology that, inspired, Stalin, Mao Zedong, Hitler, so on and so forth. The ideology of, the rich versus the poor, the landowner, the business owner versus, the workers. And just, he was, they were anti-religious and stuff. I believe Charlie Kirk was, a true man of God. I'm a Roman Catholic, but he was a Protestant. And of course we disagree about theology and stuff, but I would never want to wish, you're against the Catholic Church and, my beliefs of the Holy Bible. I wouldn't want him dead. No. He wouldn't want me dead, and he had a lot of respect for the Jewish and people, and people call, he was Islamophobic and whatever. That's what people call me if I don't talk about stuff at like work like that. But I've been because of him and people like the apostate prophet and apostate of Allah and the God logic and so on and so forth. Have really gained some insights to that particular religion, and anyways, I don't consider him Islamophobic and stuff, but anyways, I work with, where I live, I work with Muslims and atheists and Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and people of different Protestant faiths. I have no problem with them. They believe what they believe, and I'll have a healthy debate with them, but I'm not going to punch them in the face or hurt them because they don't believe as I believe. That's just wrong. Like when Charlie Kirk said, when people stop dialogue, when they stop talking, that's when the violence happens. That's when evil can truly slip in, and there's people celebrating his death, and that is just atrocious. It's sickening. It's evil and dark, and it's not inspired by God. Jesus Christ, said, forgive those. He's on the cross. He says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Things of that. So Christianity has a lot of beautiful things, and not to say that horrible things didn't happen, by people using the Bible, but this is my view. The religion, theocracy, being a theist of whatever side, can be like an axe. Again, you can use the axe to chop down a tree, make yourself a fire, cook your food, build a wooden cabin for shelter from the elements, home. or you could use it to, murder your neighbor. So it's not the tool that's evil, it's how it's used. Same thing with guns and politics. Again, I made a bunch of videos on, a pistol crossbow and stuff, and so on and so forth, but, I don't know, dang it, this video's getting too long, but, I'll just close up on some points here. His assassination is horrible. It's not going to silence what his message was. He was a unique man that did something rare: reach across the aisle, sit down and talk with those who disagree with you. That was his, alleged crime in a belief systems. But he showed a lot of people respect that disagree with him. They agreed to disagree, and we'll feel his loss for a long time. And we have to stop this horrible violence. Again, there's people celebrating his death, and those are horrible, sick, dark, atrocious people. And they represent the evil in the world, and they believe that they're righteous, they're the best of us. No, they're the worst of us. If you wish death upon anybody just because they disagree with you, or they don't believe as you believe, or walk the same spiritual path as you, or whatever, then you are evil. You are the super villain you claim to be fighting. If somebody loves Trump and votes for Trump and whatever, then that person is a white supremacist, and they're dogs. They're the poop in the grass. You got to shut them up and save our democracy. Anyways, sorry for rambling. This is a long video, but I appreciate you watching. And all I'm gonna say is, God bless America. I believe Charlie Kirk is in heaven with our Lord Savior Jesus Christ. He's a Christian, and God will judge him for his faith, not his works. And I don't believe he was an evil person. I believe he was a good man. And thanks for watching. And if you feel like leaving a comment, that's cool. If you disagree with me, that's fine too. But we need to have love and respect for each other. And when we lose that, we lose our humanity. When you can other the other person, make them less than human, make them, the dirt on your feet, see them that way, then that's when you can do truly horrible, murderous things, like this person who assassinated Charlie Kirk in cold blood. Like the same person who went to Catholic school, and the same person went to Catholic school and gunned down a bunch of people. 2 children and wounded a bunch of people. Again, who cares about his politics? What he believed? It doesn't matter. You shouldn't die for that, but he died as, I would consider him, a martyr for Christianity. And pray for his family, pray for his daughter, his son, and his wife, because they're going to have a big hole in their heart that they won't be able to fill. And they're going to grow up without their father. So hug your kids, give your wife a kiss, and live your life, do no harm, and try to walk the way of peace, walk the way of Jesus. That's how I'm going to try to live. All right, thanks for watching. Love you lots, and bye-bye.